This is Extra Paycheck Podcast, episode number 50.
You're listening to Extra Paycheck Podcast, where you will learn how to build and grow your own successful online business. Now, here's your host, Alex Soul.
Welcome to yet another episode of Extra Paycheck Podcast. This is episode number 50, and this week's special guest is Joanna Kinsman. She's a designer and the founder of a luxury swimwear brand, which she will be talking about in today's show. So enjoy today's episode. Hi, Joanna, and welcome to the Extra Paycheck Podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Joanna, please tell us a little bit about yourself and your business. What is that you do for a living?
Absolutely. Let's see, where do I start? My primary focus right now has been KiniBands, and those are actually they're hair ties that are made out of swimwear material. But I suppose the way that I kind of came to that is a bit roundabout, because I started out with a line of swimwear. It's actually lingerie inspired, and from that I was actually playing around with some of the materials one day, the cordons, the bikini strings, and just realized that this extra material that I had made for great accessories. So I made these little bracelets, and then I, eventually came to realize that they made awesome hair ties too when I was in a pinch. And then I had, shops and salons that started actually wanting to buy them before I even kind of realized that was something that I really could make a living off of. So that has, it's been my focus. From there, I built out the collection with headbands as well, and really, focusing in on the whole beach theme, because they are made out of the swimwear material and the functionality of them.
Mm-hmm. That's actually very interesting that you took something that you didn't even think was a thing, and I guess it became a thing.
Yes, exactly.
So how did you get started with, I mentioned this is like your full-time gig right now.
This is what I do.
Okay, so how did you make that switch from, let's say, having a job or looking for a job into doing this full-time? Because it's, every time you start a new venture, it's really hard to estimate sometimes how much, let's say, money you will make out of it, and if you'll be able to make a living out of it. So, a lot of people don't go into the entrepreneurship out of this fear. What if I won't be able to feed myself? And you jumped in it, kind of dedicating all your time to it. How did you have this, let's call it courage to jump into entrepreneurship like that?
I haven't always, I've always been an entrepreneur, but it hasn't always come as easy to me as it has with a lot of people. So I've worked for a lot of people in marketing. When I first moved to California, I'm from the East Coast. I moved here, and I actually got a random job on Craigslist that brought me into the whole internet marketing industry. So from there was when I decided, that I really wanted to start my own line. I always knew I wanted to start some sort of business. So that was really cool for me to learn that I could, run a business like these other people with this lower overhead and whatnot. So I was working for people, but I was learning as I went, learning the tools that they were using, meeting the people that they knew. And that's had a huge impact for me. In my most recent job, I learned a lot about direct mail and, the importance of actually getting on the phone to get sales with shops. So, I took everything that I learned and made the leap. And, fortunately, it was a little easier, I suppose, for me when it came to leaving, because it was a seasonal thing. So at the same time that my stuff was really vamping up, that was sort of winding down. And so it worked out perfectly. But I know, I've got a lot of colleagues and friends who have just had to one day, you're like, all right, I'm quitting my job. You just make that complete leap. And I think that's really incredible when people are put in a position to do something like that and are able to do it.
Yeah, that's a great story. And Joanna, when I quit my job and started doing online marketing, let's say let's call it that, back in 2007, I think it took me almost a year to actually reveal the truth to my friends and family, because I knew that I wouldn't be able to take all the how should I put it, all the negativity, I guess, that I expected would come from them. Like, are you crazy? Why are you quitting your job to start something that, who knows if it's going to work or not? So I took pretty much a full year to actually make it work and to start making more money than my previous job was paying me. And only then I actually told everyone, hey, well, I don't have a job anymore. This is what I do. That's like my own thing. But it was scary.
Yeah, it really can be.
And Joanna, you also shared a really good advice here on getting jobs in the fields that you want to work in. Well, in your case, from what I understand, as you said, it was kind of an odd job that wasn't exactly what you were looking for, but it led you to marketing, online marketing, and then other kinds of marketing with your other jobs. And can you tell us how that online marketing is working for you? Like, is it a big part of your business, or is it just something on the side? Because your business is a lot of actual physical retail.
Mm-hmm. I'm working to make that more of, a greater part of what I do with KiniBands, because, obviously our margins are a lot greater if we can go direct to consumer. And there's something kind of fun about, being able to send these packages out to each individual buyer. So, so then, with advertising, I mean, Facebook, we're getting into Instagram and YouTube ads. That's just so powerful. You can reach so many people that way that, if you don't have to cut your margins in half for that purpose, then, then you're looking pretty good. So I am doing more and more of that. And, I'm learning as I go still, running sales and doing these. We just had a really a successful, free just pay for shipping campaign. Just to get the KiniBands out there, then following up with the promotions. And so I'm staying very, very marketing savvy when it comes to this direct to consumer stuff too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's awesome. And I've been seeing a lot of smaller companies do contests, which is really interesting, because let's say they would run a contest and offer you a free product, even, not shipping, like we'll pay for shipping, we'll pay for everything, but we'll only have like 10 winners.
Mm-hmm.
And they run this contest, and you have to do at least one action. Usually, let's say, like their page on Facebook, or share their post, or follow them on Instagram and repost their picture, or follow them on Twitter, or join their emailing list. And a lot of these, there's quite a few different software that could do the work for you, right? That would randomly choose a winner, but it's not that random, because what they say, if you follow us on Instagram and Facebook and Pinterest, and you repost our stuff and you share stuff and you tag your friends, basically it gives you more entries into the contest. So, you do have a more chance of winning.
Yeah.
But what these people end up doing, let's say for a cost of 10 products or 20 products, they build up lists of like thousands of potential customers and tens of thousands of followers sometimes. And when you have that following, it's really it's really important what you do with them. And a lot of these companies, what they do, then they would send, let's say, promotional emails saying, those who didn't win the product, the free product, will offer you a discount of 50%, but only for this week. And they get loads and loads of sales, because people are still happy. People still signed up because they like the product and they were interested. And I think this is something that is really, really huge online. And this is one of the reasons I love internet, because there's so much potential and the reach could be so huge, compared to a physical retailing, let's say.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is definitely the time to be an entrepreneur, without a doubt.
Yeah. And Joanna, what are you doing to push your product forward at this point?
Let's see. It's funny that you're talking about those contests, because I just started learning about those, the like campaigns and everything. So I'm working on a Pinterest and Etsy strategy. Those two go hand in hand. So, right now I'm in sort of a learning. Oh, as far as the online stuff goes, I'm in a bit of a learning phase and, strategy development. So for the actual, customer online marketing side of things, right now, while we're recording this, at least it's January. And so my primary focus right now is actually in acquiring new accounts for our wholesale side of things. So, I've got somebody who helps me to call on shops. And we just did that actually by curating a list that actually first of sort of, I guess, somewhat of a competitor, basically an alternative to our product, other hair accessories. We grabbed their list and of where all the places where they're sold. So that was a really great thing for me to, I got thousands of awesome leads and turned that into, into some great accounts that, from there they're reordering, which is awesome. So yeah, that's, and then, we did the same thing with, complementing products too. So, all right, if there's shops out there that are carrying, cool beach blankets or swimwear, we want to be in those shops too. So then we start looking at where those are being sold. So as opposed to reinventing the wheel and starting fresh, on a blank Excel spreadsheet or something, we're just going after the lists out there that already exist that are free to us.
That's actually a really good idea.
Thank you.
Can you maybe share some advice or maybe some inside secret that you must have? How would you approach like a big retailer? My question really is, how do you find who's in charge of purchasing products and stuff like that for a big store or for a big chain? Because this is, in my opinion, this is really hard to find the right person to pitch it to.
That's very true. So yeah, there's that was always a big thing for me too. It's like, oh my gosh, you try to look on LinkedIn and this and that and try to figure it out. I can tell you Nordstrom's is fairly easily accessible. They like you to actually physically send a product up to them, and they were really easy to reach. What's another one? So I've been in touch with Bloomingdale's, for example, and, major retailer. And it's all about, kind of who you know. For me, I went to college with a girl and then saw on her LinkedIn, she'd added me. And I was like, oh, I see, you work for Bloomingdale's in the swimwear department, no less. So she actually sent my information on to the swimwear buyer. Then when I switched over from swimwear to accessories, then, she introduced me to the accessories buyer. So that for me was very fortunate. I'm still working on nourishing those relationships, and it may take a couple years because they, what we call the majors, these big, chains, they want to know that you're a company. You're new and cool, but they want to make sure that you're going to be around, when you're supposed to ship the product, and, B, when they go to place their reorders. So, so a lot of it is just building up trust. They say that, a customer needs to see your brand and your product 7 times to really know, like, and trust you, and finally, want to pull out their wallet. And I would say that probably the same goes for these shops, and maybe even more so because they've got, people coming to them, brands all the time saying, hey, carry my stuff, this and that. So they've got huge decisions to make on their part.
Yeah, that is so true. And I guess, that's, you have to stand out and you have to keep pushing, I guess.
It's true. It always takes longer than you think it's going to, but it's so worth it when it does work out.
Yeah, because I was reading somewhere not too long ago that, let's say, Costco, they receive about 5,000 applications from companies who want to sell their wine at Costco, because Costco is the biggest wine retailer in the world, as far as I know. And I'm just imagining that person that has to look through these vendors, and there's 5,000 of them selling the same product, a bottle of wine. How do you pick one? That guy that's trying to push his wine into Costco, he has to really, really stand out.
Yeah, absolutely. And, but imagine if, you just happen to know someone who knew someone who knew someone who worked at Costco, or not just worked at Costco, but was, at corporate Costco. Just having a personal referral. You take your friend's friend, you take your friend to lunch and say, hey, can you introduce me to this friend? Yeah, sure. Can you introduce me to that friend? And you get closer and closer. But it is, you also do have to come at it. You don't want people to think, oh, here comes Joanna again. All she wants is, take me to lunch to pitch me on something. So you really do have to, come from a place of sincerity, and be genuine in your approach too.
Yeah, totally. That makes a lot of sense. And I've seen that with my podcast too. When I, let's say, interview today, right? And you are telling me about a friend of yours who's also running some kind of business or, online, offline, regardless. And if I contact that friend of yours and tell him or her, hey, Joanna sent me your way and she told me that you could be like an interesting guest for the podcast. Chances are that this person will, accept the invitation a lot easier than someone else who is we call it a cold call, right?
Yeah.
Because the person could even be interested, but be like, well, I'm really busy right now. Maybe get in touch with me in a few months, then we'll talk about it. But if it's a personal recommendation, it's a lot easier to get in touch with people and to get a yes, even to, don't sell a product, but can you just meet me and look at my product or talk about it? So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And this is the reason why also we need to be proactive in creating relationships with people. It's not just to make some friends and to sell stuff to them, but it's just knowing more people and maybe getting the chance to contact someone who's really high up who would really help you and your business.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, Joanna. So can you share what was one of your hardest moments in entrepreneurship?
Oh boy, I've got a lot. Let's see. Can I share with you? That's a good one. I've had some very high highs and some low lows, and you always, I think you almost become like immune to it a little bit, where you'll you just kind of tell yourself each time it gets a little easier to deal with, and you remember that, all right, this has happened before, something like this happened before. But you worked your way out of it, and what's the worst that can happen? You're never going to end up on the streets or anything. So, so you figure it out. So, and I've had to take up jobs in the past when things haven't worked out, for one reason or another with my entrepreneurial ventures. One thing that really hit me really hard actually was last spring when I launched KiniBands, and my so the bands are they're made from metal, these metal charms that were like I said, I'd mentioned before, the cordons of my swimwear. And so I've had hired somebody. We're on the phone, sending emails, this and that. And I had taken out a loan to order my charms, and that's sort of the one missing piece. And they're made overseas to cut down on our costs. And my rep disappeared, and I'd been working with them for years, and so I didn't know what to do. My money was gone, and I all of a sudden didn't have anything to sell anymore. And it was the most, one of the most crucial times for my business, getting these shops on board. So I just, that was like the worst for me. I had to cancel a lot of orders. Some shops did let me order late when I finally found a new rep. Basically had to pay for all new molds, which are, between $300 and $600 each for all my products. Yeah. So, basically put in kind of the rest of the money that I had to be able to, order all my inventory again. And, I definitely lost a lot, but, I was really grateful to the shops that I offered them I said, hey, if you don't mind that I'm shipping these to you, even a month late, I'll give you, 20% off your order if you don't mind keeping it. Another one was, I offered, I told a few of them, I'll buy them back if you don't sell them because I know they're late. So, making those personal guarantees, I put myself out there even more, but, it worked out great. I got reorders from them instead. So, some of them. So, it all worked out, but it's, I guess it is just finding solutions and just being the ultimate problem solver when things like that happen.
Yeah, that is actually pretty scary. And I guess you never found that trap and that money.
I was able to run a chargeback. It took me months to get the money back, but I got it. But the rep got in touch with me once and then never again. So that was very unfortunate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that sucks.
Yeah.
And what I hear that, let's say in Alibaba, right? Mm-hmm. I'm sure you've heard of the website. So it's a directory of manufacturers. That's what we believe. That's what we think. But apparently a lot of companies, let's say from China, if we take China and we take some very specific product, let's say household plastic items, right? So you'll find a whole bunch of manufacturers on Alibaba, but there aren't really manufacturers. They're actually reps representing those manufacturers. Mm-hmm. So, that's kind of the scary thing, that you're trusting your money and your whole business into the hands of a person, and you can't even get to the company, because even if you find who the real manufacturer is and you get in touch with them, they'll just tell you, well, we never received your order nor your money, so you're on your own. And I could imagine how scary it would be, because for me, I had a problem. I did a reorder in Asia as well. I reordered the same product that I've been ordering like a few times, and they took the money and they told me, okay, that you'll get the product in a month, and usually it takes a week to get it from China to my door in Montreal, right? And I was like, well, how come the whole month? They're like, well, it's Christmas season, a lot of people ordering, we can't keep up with the orders. And I told them, well, at least you could have not warned me in advance. Maybe I would have found someone else who can do it in a week. Mm-hmm. But, so we lost a lot of sales because of that, which is, fine, whatever. It's something that you learn for next Christmas. I'm going to order a lot more way in advance. Mm-hmm. But it's something that, you have to sometimes trust your business into hands of a rep. And if something goes wrong, you have to be ready to, get up and keep on hustling.
Yeah, absolutely. You really do have to be able to dust yourself off big time.
So you were just saying that you switched from swimwear to KiniBands.
Yeah, I've had a few different entrepreneurial ventures. I suppose the first time I really went out on my own, I guess I was a virtual assistant. I turned my first job in marketing was as an executive assistant. Got that job. That was the one from Craigslist that was really random. And that's how I started meeting all these amazing people in internet marketing, living here in San Diego, which is a big hub for that. And then I started working for those people, and eventually left my job and was this executive assistant virtual assistant traveling to events, meeting more people, working from home, and I was loving it. But I had a calling to do something bigger. I needed to start my own business. I was a part owner of a company in Maine for a while, which is where I'm from. It just so happens to be. Went back there for a while, worked on that, and then I sold my part of that after a year and a half. And that's when I moved to LA to focus on the swimwear. And I'm still working on the swimwear, but I just don't really have much time for it these days. So I'm actually pulling down the e-commerce store, making it just custom swimwear, which I really enjoy. I'll go back to it at some point. It's that lingerie-inspired Brazilian cut swimwear, and just focusing on the hair accessories these days. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's also interesting that you're mentioning it, because I see a lot of people online, especially when they ask me, okay, I'm making, let's say, $100 a month with my website, and it's passive income. So if I make 20 more websites or 30 more websites, I'll be making, a lot more every month. And then my question usually is, yeah, but can you really run that many websites and that many businesses at the same time? Mm-hmm. Why don't you just concentrate on one thing and make it grow and, make it your focus? And I think it'll be a lot easier than, let's say, starting 20 different companies and, trying to do everything at once. You'll end up with no money and no time for anything.
Yeah. That's very true. And it's funny, when I first got started too, I met James Wedmore. I don't know if he's the video marketing or YouTube guy. Yeah. And, I was telling you about all these ideas. I've got a whole list of business ideas and, all these things. I'm like, oh, I want to do this and that and this and that. And he goes, think of it like juggling plates, Joanna. You got to get one spinning first before you let somebody throw you another one and start spinning that. So that's why, for me, I look at the lowest hanging fruit for myself. And, right now it's the hair accessories. I can reach the most, the most people, and it's the most unique thing that, that I'm doing right now, where if I sat on that for a few years, I think I'd be kicking myself later on, and somebody else, was doing something similar. So, it's really imperative for me to make this all happen right now with KiniBands.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome to hear that this kind of advice, and I hope people listening to this podcast will let it sink in and concentrate on one thing and actually work on it and not jump from one thing to another to another to another.
Absolutely.
Although it is hard to choose just one thing sometimes, as you're saying, all these great ideas. What do I do? Which one or which ones?
Yeah, for me, I'm, you look at it like phases even. All right, phase one, you make enough money with it so that you can hire somebody part-time, so that's what, I've got somebody, I was finally able to, to pay somebody to help me make the calls. Then you're scaling up just a little bit and a little bit after that. So, I'm not to say that that's, the absolute way to do it, but that's one way.
I think this is actually a great way to do things. And I've met a lot of online entrepreneurs that do exactly that. They set goals and they're similar to what you just mentioned. First I have to make enough, let's say, to pay for my expenses. Then the next level, the next income is going to go to pay someone else, that either a virtual assistant or someone outsourced that would do a lot of tasks, which will give me more time to concentrate on the actual business. And you slowly grow and grow and grow. But I think setting goals for those things is actually a really important thing, because if you don't have goals in sight, you're not going to get too far.
Absolutely.
Okay, Joanna. So at this point, you've been doing this entrepreneurship thing for quite a while. And what would you say are some of the best qualities and personal traits that entrepreneurs must pay attention to?
Absolutely. As you had mentioned too, it's persistence, being able to dust yourself off and keep going, be prepared for the worst sometimes, being able to pivot really. And I think that's maybe an even greater attribute to pivot and just go with the flow of things.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And Joanna, so going back to, let's say, those hard moments, let's say it's really not working out, and as you said, you lost your money, at least temporarily, and you couldn't get your order, so you couldn't get the products to the stores. You weren't sure if they're gonna order or want to post date the orders. What made you push through it and not just quit and be like, this company is not going to work out, I'll do something else or I'll get a job? Obviously you decided that you will keep pushing, but what was the motivation behind it? What was the reasoning?
It's a great question. For me, maybe I was at the point where I was just used to it. I knew it was going to work out some way, somehow. Some days were easier than others. You start to kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel. When you'd get an email from one of the buyers that, hey, just let me know when they're in, we'll still take them, and that's like, all right, well, we've got that revenue as soon as we're able to get this all settled. That's good. And so it was the accounts believing in me. And just my support system in general, my boyfriend, I've got a group of female entrepreneurs here in San Diego that we meet once a month. And that was, I came to a few different meetings, saying, hey, no charms yet. We haven't gotten them in, but, kind of giving them updates. And, I was just able to talk about it and figure out other things in the meantime. So actually, while I was waiting for them, I should have mentioned too that I took up some consulting work, which was a lot of fun. I was working with a swimwear line to bring them to production. So I kind of looked at my other assets that I had and made that work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's very interesting, but I think it's hard to grasp for a lot of us because honestly, if my business went, crumbling down, honestly, I can't guarantee that I would actually keep doing it. I think there is a big chance that I would be, it's just been bad luck. Everything's been happening to this specific business. I'll just quit that and I'll start something totally different.
Yeah.
It just, it's amazing how you said you just knew it's gonna work out in the end.
It has to.
But see, this is the thing. I think this is why it did work out, because you truly believed in it. You're not a psychic. None of us are. We can't really see in the future and be like, well, no, I see that in 3 years from now I'm still doing this business, so it has to work out, right? I think it's really the mentality behind it of, well, I have no other choice. I'm gonna make that work for me. And you start, when you really believe it, you're gonna give your 110%, and I think you're gonna push it to the point where it has no other direction as to success.
Yeah.
Okay, Joanna. So besides persistence and pivoting and all those things that we've just talked about, what would be your biggest and the only suggestion to a beginner entrepreneur? Like, what should they do, or what personal trait should they acquire? If you had to suggest one single thing, what would it be?
So I guess this is sort of my go-to, but I feel so strongly about it, is the ability to take imperfect action, and believe in your product, and also believe in yourself, and enough to know that even if you're sharing your ideas, maybe it's on this rudimentary website, or you're at the point where you're telling people about it. Don't be afraid to put that out there in whatever form it's in, because it's going to get better, and you're going to get better. And if somebody takes your, especially as a designer, if somebody's going to take my ideas, quote unquote take my ideas, then I better have other ideas to back those up. So don't let something like that keep you from moving forward these things, whether, there's never going to be enough time, enough money, your website's never going to be perfect, all these things, and, just go for it and run, take that risk.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting advice. And can you share, well, not sure, I guess this is, you just talked about having a group of people, a group of women entrepreneurs that you meet with. How is that helping you in personal life and in business?
Oh man, we just thrive in this group. We, you go there and, we keep it really small. You just end up with so much energy at the end of it. You can talk about good, the good, the bad, the ugly. First we share at least one win, or all of our wins essentially that have happened over the month, and you can kind of celebrate in that, and then you say what's going on with your business, and then you tell people what you need help with, and it's amazing just the small number that we've kept it to. We are growing this, but the amount of help that you can get just from, say there's 4 of us typically that show up. It's so incredibly helpful as far as that goes, and it provides a great little social aspect too. I mean, we're all friends. So, where you may not, as an entrepreneur, always make time to go out, and have fun, even for, a week, 2 weeks at a time. So it's good, just, get yourself out there and go. So it's been amazing for all of us, and we all agree on that.
So you're kind of mixing pleasure with business in a way.
Yeah, exactly.
And do you guys hold each other accountable in front of the others?
A bit. I think more kind of on the side. I'll write notes on certain things that other people are going to work on. So we might check up. We've got a group text that goes on too. So we'll say, all right, well, this month I know that I need to finish up my e-commerce store or something like that. And then, it's like, then you're excited to let them know, hey, I hit this goal. I did it. Check it out, and you get feedback. And so it really is just such a supportive atmosphere. But yeah, holding each other accountable is definitely key.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think networking masterminds are great. Unfortunately, I haven't been to that much lately, but a little while ago, I was meeting up with this local group of entrepreneurs, so from different fields of business. And it was amazing. Like you mentioned, the whole energy was just crazy. And then the fact that you meet up with them and you tell them, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to achieve this by next month. And when you come back and people start looking at you, be like, so what's up? What have you been up to? And it's like, it's going to happen. So for that month, you're working really hard on achieving what you told them you will achieve, because you know that nobody's going to, look bad at you if you failed, but people will drill it down for 20 minutes, half an hour, trying to figure out why you failed and what you could do differently next time, or what could you have done to prevent it, right? So I think this is the aspect that I like the most about those kind of things, because you really get to, fresh set of eyes on your problems and, well, your achievements as well. And people just, people who are doing something completely different from you, they give you their, ideas and their point of view. And sometimes it's like, it's awakening. You're like, wow, seriously, I would have never thought of that.
It is. Yeah. It's so valuable.
All right. Okay, Joanna. So before you go, could you maybe share some plans for this upcoming year? Because, 2016 just started. We'll have resolutions as always for this year. What are your resolutions for your business for 2016?
My resolutions are automation, delegation, and vacation. So, kind of self-explanatory, just delegating out more tasks, my social media being one of them, just things that take up time in my day. So I'm getting better at that, and just keeping, consistent with my own team that I have overseas, making sure that I'm giving them, enough, maybe even more than enough work, ideally. So I'm doing more as far as that goes, not trying to do so much myself. I'm not, fiddling around with WordPress anymore. So it's, so there's that. And then, the automation more, I suppose, when I made that one, it's just, creating, sales funnels and, setting up ads to drive traffic to, kind of this, ideally set it and forget it kind of, business. So, and I decided that I need to take more vacations. So those are my 3 things.
I'm going to get in touch with you in a year, and I'm going to check up on your resolutions.
Yes, please do. Absolutely. You can hold me accountable.
That would be interesting. And a vacation, I think this is super important, and a lot of us simply forget about it. And I think what you just mentioned, delegation automation, right? That's something that will help you have more time for vacation and for yourself. So I think these are really amazing resolutions for the upcoming year for pretty much everyone who's doing a business of any kind.
Yeah.
I said it was the last question, but I'm going to ask you one more question since you mentioned it. Delegation. Personally, I find this really, 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 really hard task. I just can't bring myself to trust others with, stupid things. Like you said, playing with WordPress. I don't know. It's really hard for me to kind of, it's not that it's hard for me. Let me put it the right way. I can't bring myself to trust that people will do as good of work as I would on my own business, right? So maybe you could suggest some things here, like how could people delegate more and maybe easier?
So for me, it also took me a while to, to fully trust my assistants overseas, or, just knowing what they're capable of. So I just started out with small tasks. I had one, I had him start out by creating these, before the days of Pinterest, creating online scrapbooks for me, or, digital scrapbooks of all the, these, screenshots and photos, everything that I found online. I want to keep them in one place. So, so he did that for me. And I realized he was great with communication, good with deadlines, this and that. And that's really hard to come by. But once you find somebody, who has those qualities typically don't disappear. So, that was just somebody that I had found on Odesk when it was Odesk and not Upwork. And he's been with me for years. So, I've got another one now who has been with me for a couple of years, and you just, even just keeping track of their strengths and, the projects that they've been really successful with, because it can get a little confusing after a while, like, oh, who did that say for me again? But I know that one of them is great with layouts, for example, but he's terrible with logos. So, and I just have to remember that. But, being able to over communicate your ideas and your visions. I feel like with a WordPress, for example, I mean, you really do have to say, all right, I want you spell it out. I want these, this stuff in this menu, this over here. I want it, I want it to look like, like the feeling of these. Here are the images that we're going to use. This is where they go. I mean, just it's, and it's a lot of, if you just give them a chance sometimes, but letting them work up to that. I always ask for, either for references, work samples of that nature. I ask them how long it's going to take them to do it. So, eventually, I think, by asking the right questions and working up to it, you can build yourself a pretty good team. And they're grateful for the work. Absolutely.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. And that's one of the things that I'm planning to kind of start doing more in 2016, delegate more things. And I'm sure your advice will help me personally.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you for that.
All right, Joanna, thank you so much for sharing all of that. And please tell the listeners, where could they find more about you or your company?
Absolutely. Mainly the best way to get in touch with me currently is through the hair accessory stuff that I'm doing, KiniBands.com. It's KiniBands. My primary site is JoannaKinsman.com, and that's where I, kind of do all my consulting and whatnot. That's JoannaKinsman. And I've got one of my guys working on redoing my Kinsman Swim site right now. But if you guys want to check it out by the time this airs, hopefully it'll be done. Kinsman Swim, KINSMANSWIM. And I'm all over social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all that stuff.
All right. Thank you so much, Joanna. Thank you for being on the podcast, sharing your story and your advice to entrepreneurs.
Absolutely, Alex. Thank you again for having me.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of Extra Paycheck Podcast. As usual, I will be putting up show notes page at extrapodcast.com/50, where you will be able to find resources, links, and other things mentioned in today's episode. Also, head over to extrapodcast.com/iTunes in order to subscribe to the show, leave a rating and a review, which will help me tremendously. Thank you so much once again, and I'll talk to you next Monday.